In this video, I'm going to give you key action steps that you could start implementing today to improve your digestion. And I'm also going to outline some signs and symptoms to look for when our digestive system is off. And if you stick around to the end of this video, I'm going to share with you the biggest mistake I see people make that could have negative effects on their digestive system. So let's jump right into it. I want to start by talking about the structure and the function of the digestive system, because understanding the lay of the land will allow us to better know what we need to do to improve our digestion. The digestive system has three main parts: the stomach, small intestine, and large intestine. But digestion begins in the mouth with the process of chewing. From there, food goes down the esophagus and into the stomach, where there is precious acid that plays an important role in the digestion of protein, as well as the absorption of key minerals like calcium, iron, and vitamins like vitamin B12. From there, food enters the small intestine. This is where we absorb most of the fat, protein, and carbohydrates from the food. From the small intestine, food enters the large intestine, where there is some nutrient absorption, but this is where we absorb most of the water. There are also accessory organs like the pancreas and liver, which play an important role in digestion by secreting bile as well as digestive enzymes from the pancreas. So what are some signs and symptoms that suggest our digestion is off? Who would want to implement the key action steps that we're going to discuss shortly? Well, if you experience any of these symptoms, it suggests that there's something going on with your digestive system, and you may want to listen closely to what we're going to discuss. Firstly is gas and bloating. A lot of people experience gas and bloating, especially after they eat, specifically fibrous foods like beans, legumes, or cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower. With gas, I'm referring to belching or burping and flatulence or farting from the bottom. And with bloating, what I mean by that is that after you eat, you feel like your stomach swells up. So if you're experiencing those symptoms, you may want to listen closely to some of these foundational steps that I'm going to be talking about, because they could really go a long way as far as improving digestion. The next symptom is abdominal pain. Oftentimes what happens after we eat specific foods, we may experience bad abdominal pain. So it's important to understand what foods are causing that pain and for us to avoid it, because pain is not a good thing to be experiencing, specifically in the digestive system. Next is loose stools. A lot of people think loose stools are normal to have, but they're not. Loose stools tell us that there's something going on that we should investigate and figure out what's contributing to the loose stools. And last but not least, we want to be checking if we're constipated. If we're constipated and not having regular bowel movements, we really want to take some of the action steps that we will discuss in order to optimize our digestive system and digestive function, because not having regular bowel movements, ideally every day, 1 or 2 times, is not very good. And we want it to be well formed. Like I said, loose stools are something that aren't very good to notice. Stools should look like a snake. It should be well formed like a snake. That's what an ideal bowel movement looks like. Next is heartburn. If we're experiencing any symptoms of heartburn, that's like a burning sensation that rises up in our chest. We may want to look into what's causing the heartburn and what we could do about it to improve those symptoms, because they're very uncomfortable and they could irritate that lining, that mucosal lining in our throat. And lastly, indigestion. And that just simply refers to the feeling of having food just sit there like a rock for too long. If food is sitting there for too long, feels like it's not digesting, you may want to implement some of the key action steps that we're going to be discussing in order to help move that food along. So if you're experiencing any of these symptoms, I highly suggest you stay tuned for the key action steps that we're about to mention. So let's jump right into the key action steps that we could take starting today to improve our digestion. First and foremost, we want to make sure we're eating in a calm, relaxed state, because eating in a rush or not paying attention to the food that we're eating is very detrimental for digestion. So it's really, really important when we're eating to be sitting at a table, mindful of the food, and not multitasking or watching a horror movie. So avoid eating in a rush. Make sure you're calm and relaxed when you're eating. Next, we want to avoid the inflammatory foods. The common ones are sugar, processed foods, dairy, gluten. Those are the top ones that I see in clinical practice. And I test a lot of my patients for food sensitivities, which is a measure of how much inflammation a food causes. And I see those four foods causing a lot of inflammation in people. So what I recommend is really avoiding those as much as you can, especially if you know that you don't feel very well when you eat something like bread or gluten or dairy. So you want to make sure to avoid those inflammatory foods as much as possible. The next thing you want to do is chew your food very well, ideally 30 times before swallowing each mouthful. The process of chewing food, it stimulates the digestive system to produce acid and enzymes, which are crucial for digestion. And if we're just scarfing the food down, we're missing out on that part of digestion, which is so incredibly important. So chew your food well at least 30 times before swallowing. I challenge you to do this. Count how many times you're chewing before swallowing and comment below and let me know. And if you're liking this content so far, please do subscribe if you haven't already done so. Drop a thumbs up, and I have lots of great content coming up for you shortly, and I appreciate your support. And the last thing we want to do is we want to avoid fluids with meals, because earlier, as I discussed, the stomach has this precious acid in there that's so incredibly important for digestion. And what happens if we drink fluids while we're eating, we're diluting that acid, which could lead to indigestion, bloating, acid reflux, symptoms like that. And so it's very important for us to limit our fluid intake to just sips with meals in order for the digestive process to be optimal with that stomach acid. And so what I tell people is 30 minutes before and after meals, no water, just sips. And that's how we could really allow the digestive stomach acid to do its function. I hope you find this information helpful so far. And there's one more thing that I'm going to give you that's very, very important when it comes to optimizing digestion. And that is to make sure we're not eating fruit with meals. Because what happens, and I see so many people making this mistake, when you eat fruit with food, especially if it has protein or starchy carbohydrates, the fruit doesn't combine very well with that food, and it just sits there in the digestive system, and it can putrefy and give off gas and ferment, causing a lot of abdominal and digestive discomfort. So make sure you're not making this mistake by eating fruit with meals. Keep fruit away from meals. I hope you found the information that I presented here today helpful, and I'm confident if you begin implementing these key action steps, your digestion will improve. If you enjoyed this video and haven't subscribed yet, please go down and click the subscribe button because I have lots of exciting content coming up.